at. Salsa St. Clair taught me about trusting the next step. So I want to share something in my mind that's been going on my mind over and over again ever since Saturday night. And if you don't know what Salsa St. Clair is, it's just like a festival that they do in Toronto. And everyone comes together and you start dancing salsa and bachata. And it's just a really fun time. So I was basically at Salsa St. Clair when the shooting happened. And afterwards, I have to admit, it was something that I couldn't stop replaying in my mind. Um, and it's something that I kept on going over and over because it was like I missed basically getting shut up. Right. Missed getting shut up by like just because we moved in a different direction, a different section, and I'm gonna explain all that. But um, one of the biggest denominators that I noticed was all my tiny decisions that I made that day, which led me to being safe throughout the evening. And it kind of reminded me the gist of this video is gonna all it will be about. Sometimes you don't even know the whole plan. And all you need to do is take the next step. And sometimes you may not know it. And this was proof to me after being like very close to shooting and all that stuff, like at Salsa Sinclair. So basically, this is what happened. Like, I just want to give you guys a timeline. So around 3 p.m., I parked my car and I started walking towards the festival. And then I realized, so basically, I was maybe a block away. I forgot my water bottle. So this is very key, very important in this story. And I contemplated going back and forth to get the water bottle, but then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna leave it. I'll just, if anything, I'm just gonna buy waters like at Salsa St. Clair. And I almost turned around, right? But then I was like, I'm just gonna continue. So basically, I met up with my friend, and we went to go eat. And this is very important in the story, right? Because this was all about, if you're just tuning in, this is all about me being around the shooting around Salsa St. Clair. Okay. So basically, we went to go eat like a taco, a burrito, taco burrito. They had different versions. So we waited in that line. We went to eat that. Took some time, and then a little later, we decided to go near the stage, and we were listening to live music. And kid you not, we took pictures right at in front of the stage. Okay, we took pictures around there. We were driving. The singer was good. I think it was Andy Warhol, like the Latino singer. Um, but for some reason, as I was there, this is very important. I had decided, I was like, you know what? Let me go buy water. Because remember, I told you I had forgot my water bottle there. So right away, we moved away from that stage. All right, this is very important to the story. We moved away from that stage. And so as I was buying my water, I noticed to my left there was a little bench. I was standing a long time. So I was like, you know what, let me just sit down. And here's the thing, I don't usually do this. Usually I would just go back to the stage and jive, have fun, whatever. But I was like, you know what, let me go back to the stage. So this was probably maybe an hour before the shooting happened. Um, so I sit on the bench and I text my friend and I'm like, okay, I'm like, hey girl, I'm just sitting on a bench. You can come whenever. And I knew she would check her phone eventually, like, because obviously we weren't really checking our phones. And so basically, what happens is she comes to the bench, and then we decide to go back to McDonald's because I was like, oh, like I wanted to get a refill of my drink or get water or whatever. I want to refill our water bottles. So then we decide to then we refill our water bottles. So sorry, there's a water station outside. And then we decide to go into the McDonald's. And we take a seat there because I'm like, you know what, let's find a seat, blah, blah, blah. So we find a seat and we're just chilling in there while the whole festival is going on. And I remember there's a point where she was like, hey, do you want to go back outside? Like for food? And I was like, oh, well, you know what? There's not that much variety. Like, it's pretty much tacos and burritos and all that stuff. And so we don't go. She ends up ordering the burger. Okay. And she orders her own food, whatever, and I just chill. And then basically what happens is, so then maybe 10 minutes in before everything happens, look to her and I say, I don't know. I don't think I would ever live around Salsa St. Clair. This is so funny. And I didn't know it yet, but I found out why. And then all of a sudden, I'm sitting down, and then I see like water mist in the air. And there was at least 300 to 400 people in that McDonald's, right? Because remember, it's around South of St. Clair. And kid you not, that water mist broke out. I thought it was water mist. And then everyone started running. So I have to admit, I was that black person like in a horror movie, wondering what the heck is going on? Why is everyone running? And basically, everyone kept on saying gas, gas, gas. And I'm like, what are they talking about? And then basically, then people started saying pepper spray, and people were like, gunshots, gunshots. Da 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 da. I'm like, why are people saying this? Right? So finally, we go outside because eventually, if you don't know anything about a pepper spray, is it starts just to spread in the room. Like, so eventually it just kind of, it starts getting into your lungs and like you're breathing your eyes. Like, that thing is brutal. Like, you feel like you're going to, like, basically you want to vomit. So I finally ran outside because I was like, oh, wait, this is not water mist, it's pepper spray. So I go outside, and then like a bunch of police officers come up to me, like with AK-47s, and they're wondering, what happened? What happened? And I was like, oh, it's just pepper spray. Like, completely oblivious. So I was like, oh, it was just pepper spray. There was no shooting. I don't know why everyone's saying there's a shooting. There was no guns, right? And so all of a sudden, like all of there were at least 20 officers. They start running in a certain direction, and then all 100 people started following. And then this was at the time when I was oblivious, so I didn't understand. Well, most of the people in McDonald's didn't understand. So basically, I was in this McDonald's, and basically it was like almost like we're sheltered. So everyone starts running, and then I was like, in my mind, I was like, there was so much adrenaline. So then I almost started following, and then my friend stopped me. She's like, Nikia, where do you think you're going? Stop going, we're going there. Next thing you know, the shooter comes, right? And so basically, we find out after everything kind of settles down, like just in that moment, we start to talk to people, and we realize there was a shooting happening right there at the intersection that we were at basically before. And then I started to really retrace my steps. And I remember thinking, that's so crazy. So remember when I told you, like, oh, like all the little details, like I forgot the water bottle. Like, if I didn't forget the water bottle, right, I probably would have still been at that stage. And it turns out that's where that shooter was. He was shooting at people, where it was at that stage. And then I realized that when we were in McDonald's, like the music was so loud, we were technically sheltered from that trampede, basically. So there was a whole track. There was 13,000 people. Everyone was running, but in that timing, we were basically in the McDonald's. We were sheltered. That's what it felt like. But I do feel like it was a little bit of a diversion, with the pepper spray. While like it seemed like it all happened at similar timings with the shooting and the pepper spray. But anyway, so the point of this is I was thinking back, and then my friend reminded me, and she was like, it's funny because she's like, I wanted to go outside. And then you kind of talked me out of it because you're like, oh, like, she kind of basically she talked me out of it. I talked her out of it, and because I was like, oh, it's the same type of food, just like if you really want to go, we can. But I was like, no, we don't need to go. And then I started tracing back, like when I said about Salsa St. Clair, how I wouldn't live there, and then all of a sudden the shooting happened. Um, but the main thing around this is like, if I had made different choices, I probably would have been caught up in that whole mess or the whole trampede, right? And obviously, I'm not saying like if I took the steps, if I took alternate steps, it would have happened. But to me, it was so crazy because it was so close. Like, it was literally like maybe like 2 minutes away. where we were, or if we had went out for food, we would have been in the line at the exact intersection and probably got stomped all over, which was nuts. Um, and so the lessons I learned from this, because it really got me reflecting, I was like, it's like you don't need to know the whole plan. Um, and sometimes you just have to let, like, it made me think about purpose a little bit because it's like sometimes you have to allow uncertainty to be there. Um, because a lot of times when we're making decisions, we usually want certainty, but sometimes it's like we don't need to know the whole plan. We don't need to have every step perfectly. Sometimes you're gonna just be creating it. You're just gonna be reworking your plan. Like I originally came there with a plan. For example, with that water bottle, right? That water bottle saved my life. But I basically came with a plan where I was like, oh, I'm gonna bring my water bottle. I even put the little ice in there, everything. And then the plan went out the door when I decided to leave it. And I was like, you know what? I shifted gear. And then I decided to buy the water bottle, right? Right? And then sometimes all we're given, like you get to realize, like sometimes, like you may have to divert. Sometimes you realize, like, okay, this is all we're given is the next step. Like it's like I didn't know that day that like someone was gonna come and like, you know, shoot at people, injure people, all that stuff. But like it just made me realize, like, sometimes like it just in life in general is sometimes we just need to take one step at a time. Like we don't like things don't always have to go according to plan exactly how you planned it, right? One step at a time, baby. The next thing was like what I realized is how much little tiny decisions matter. Like though this was like a traumatic experience, and by the way, I was more like just to clarify. I think if I like had saw the shooting directly, I'd have been even more traumatized. But I think for me, it was more so like adrenaline and surprised, like with everything that happened. But the tiny decisions that it taught me, right? Because these were little tiny decisions that made a huge deal at the end. But I think like sometimes we think like the thing that will change our lives is going to be the huge moments, right? But sometimes the changes would be the small things that you do. So maybe the change, like to deviate away from the event, can be like you do a small change where you decide to write one article one day, or you start to journal one day, or you paint one day. Like you just do like a small change, something that something that you don't usually do, that changes the course of like where you're going. Like that small change can make a big difference. So like the change I did was usually I would be at the stage, but then instead I decided to buy water, and then I sat on a bench, and then I stayed inside 5 minutes longer into the McDonald's, right? And those small decisions completely changed the direction of my day and my life. Basically, it basically saved my life, right? So like I think it's just like what it taught me is like don't underestimate tiny decisions. That day where you decide to just save $5 a month, right? Because that's all you have. Where we think, oh well, I have to save like $100, or I have to save $1,000 a month, for example, right? But you're like, well, I don't have it, so I'm not gonna do it. But like sometimes those small, tiny changes makes all the difference, right? Where you're like, okay, I'm gonna just start off with $5, like the small things, or I'm gonna just start posting, like on social media once a week or twice a week. Like obviously you'd like to post every day, but maybe you can't do that. But you're probably moving forward more posting once a week, for example, than not posting at all, right? Anyway, so the next one was looking back, um it reminded me how important it is to really trust myself. Um so meaning like I was like, look how I trusted my decision. Um, and I like the decisions I made during Salsa St. Clair, it basically just flowed. Like I trusted the decisions that I made. And then I go back and then going back and forth and be like, let me go back to the car, even if didn't want to. Like, it's like I just moved forward. And it kind of, there was a point when I heard about the shooting and then we got pepper sprayed, but that's okay. Because I'd rather get pepper sprayed than shut up. But I remember there was a point where I was like, look how powerful that is to just follow your like intuition or just trust yourself. And then just make the decisions and just don't think back on it. And I think that's just so powerful. I think a lot of times we spend time we spend so much time trying to make decisions and we go back and forth in it to the point where we confuse yourself. But like this is your encouragement to like trust yourself and just make the decision. And it's okay, like listen, it could have gone another way where I made a different decision and then maybe I got injured, right? But I think what matters is that you're just trusting in yourself to make the decisions that you need to make at that moment that makes sense to you. Because sometimes you're not going to hear God's voice. It's not going to be so loud where he's like, oh, do this, right? Sometimes it's just like trusting that decision and just going with your first thought. So in my case, when the first thought was like, okay, just leave the water bottle, I was like, okay. And I didn't understand it. I wasn't thinking anything ill. But it's like, it just made me realize how important it is to trust the little steps that you're making even more, even if you can't see the bigger picture. Um, right? I think that's like really the most important thing. So yeah, I just wanted to share that story because, um, like, how many times are you gonna be in a situation where you're dancing salsa and then hey Sophia, and then all of a sudden people start get like some random shooter comes and just starts shooting people like nuts. And then you are basically at that stage not too long ago in the front. And then you decide to just make a decision and go like switch gears. That's crazy to me. And that basically saved my life. So I'm wondering if any of you guys have ever looked back and realized one small decision changed everything before you even saw the bigger picture. So it just changed my perspective on things, and it made me, I don't know, it just made me look at life differently, and like how much times we spend so much time sometimes trying to make the perfect decision. We're trying to make that big decision all in one day. We're trying to think about our future all in one day. We're trying to think of 5 years, 20 years, 10 years from now. But sometimes it's just taking it one day at a time, like thinking about today and being like, okay, what's the next step I'm gonna make, even if it feels like things are not moving. And I know like I sometimes struggle with that where I feel like, okay, the small decisions I can't see right now. And there's times where I'm like, okay, I can't tell if the small decision that I'm making is working. But I'm here to say, like, with all the event that happened at Salsa St. Clair, you guys can look it up. Like, it made me see, like, oh my gosh, like, every tiny decision you make will change the outcome. Like, and it doesn't matter if you don't see it in the beginning. Like in this case, I was able to see it in a day. Like I was able to see like the whole thing unfold, and it taught me so much. Where I was like, look at how those tiny decisions saved my life. Like going to McDonald's basically saved my life, and getting like water and whatever. Like it saved my life. It changes your perspective, and like so I needed to just see that. I'm not saying there should have been an active shooter, but like I'm saying like it made me like when I look at the events, it made me see the way I see decisions so much different now. With that experience because I'm like, oh my god, like every tiny decision you make, like even and like it's like even like deciding to even go to that event, right? Not knowing that hey, you may be injured or something may happen, but it's like every decision you made where you're like, oh, I'm gonna go, could change the course of your life. Like you like it's so powerful. So it's like days where you feel like, oh, like this is not working, or I don't think this decision is gonna make sense. Like this is your reminder that like everything, every action that you choose to do, when you choose to wake up and get out of your bed, like that's a decision. You know, when you choose to look at the clock, it's a decision. When you choose to get up and go to work, it's a decision. Like if you when you choose to like go do an activity, like move your body, it's a decision. There's always an outcome to it, and the thing about it is there's gonna be a negative or there's gonna be a good outcome. And I just never really like looked at it in depth until I went through this like experience where I was like almost gone basically. So just don't underestimate the small steps because you never know where it's going to lead you. It's so powerful. Like you don't know. Like don't ever think like your small steps that you're taking is going to go in vain. Like everyone has to start somewhere. Like every small decision, tiny decision you have to make, everyone has to do it, right? Like or life is going to do it for you, right? So it's better you stay in control of it. But yeah, I just wanted to share that. All right, bye.